Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kyle Mao. I am the founder and owner here at HireUA. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel for more tips on outsourcing operations and of course scaling and building out your remote work team. Today we're going to be discussing how to effectively manage virtual assistants. Obviously, since COVID and everything that's happened in the world for the last few years, there's been a lot of changes to the workforce, which means that virtual assistants are becoming more and more prevalent to any modern day company. And even if you don't have a virtual assistant from a typical country like Ukraine or the Philippines or India, you still likely have people working remotely. So knowing these strategies and how to effectively manage a remote team will ultimately be very helpful for you and your business. With that being said, here are 10 ways to manage virtual assistants. So let's go ahead and get right into the video. Step number one is identifying clear goals. And this is true for any hire. It's not just going to be for someone that's a remote position. You need to understand what you need help with. If you are the business owner, you need to be auditing your time and you need to be looking at what tasks can be automated. And if they can't be automated, can they be delegated? And once you have kind of figured out what you effectively need to take off your plate, you'll start to be able to piece together a role and what that should look like. You should make sure that outsourcing these tasks still will align with your overall business objection and goal. So if you're going to outsource something, if you're going to take something off of your hands and you give it to somebody else, you're going to be entrusting that person with whatever piece of your business that is. Is it going to work? Are you going to be able to trust this person? Are you going to be able to let that go? Does it align with the overall mission of your company? Make sure that it does. Number two, clearly define the scope of work and the responsibilities of the role. So I see this all the time where someone goes to make a hire and they don't actually know what they're hiring for. They just want someone to help them with tasks, or they just want someone to figure things out for them. That is simply not going to work for the majority of roles. If you're hiring just a simple virtual assistant, you need to have a specific list of tasks and a specific list of expectations that you're expecting this person to execute. You should have clear KPIs, you should have clear deadlines, which we'll get into a little bit more in the video, and you should overall have a good picture of what this person is going to be doing on a daily basis. I always like to say that you should be able to fill this person's day with tasks. Like they should have something that no matter what, every day when they log on, they know they're going to do this certain thing. And of course, other stuff's going to come up. You're going to need to flesh out their day a little bit, but you should have a set number of hours, at least a decent chunk of their workday every day that they know they're logging on and they're doing that. Not just getting a new task every day that they have to figure out. They should have some sort of daily workflow and routine. It will help them thrive in the role. So once you have defined the goals and you've kind of defined the scope of work, and you've made sure that this is going to be something that you're going to be able to trust somebody with and that it's going to drive your company forward, it's time to actually make the right hire, which is step number 3. There's a lot of different ways you can go about this. If you're looking for somebody in a remote position, you can of course go to the job boards and you can post the job and you can sift through several hundred resumes. You can go that route. I will not sit here and say it's the most time-effective way to do it. Of course, I'm a little bit biased. I'm going to tell you should go to hire-ua.com and we'll sort it all out for you. We can do that. There are other ways though, and I'm not going to sit here and BS you and say that my way is the only way. Your network, your own friends, your own business connections, that's often by far the best way to actually go and find somebody. So if you are looking to fill a role, put it out there on social media. If you've got a few thousand followers, like just put it out there and see what comes in. If you know a friend who's hired for this role before, maybe he or she had 5 people they interviewed and they liked 3 of them, say, hey, are those people still available? Have you talked to them recently? Don't hesitate to reach out to the people in your network, anyone you know, because like word of mouth, friendships, business connections, like that is a great way to fill a position. If not, you've got those other options. Obviously try to fill it yourself, very time intensive, or you can go to an agency like ours and we'll be glad to help you out. 4 is to establish key communication guidelines. So are you going to be using Slack? Are you going to be using Zoom? Are you going to use Skype? Figure out which way you're going to communicate, figure out how often you're going to communicate, and figure out how quickly you expect somebody to respond. And then keep in mind, the more responsive you expect someone to be, the more you're typically going to pay. And you should have this spelled out in the job description. If, for example, it's a customer service position that they need to be responding to customer service inquiries within an hour, that's something to note. Or is it a job with a little more flexibility? Is it one of those kind of positions where if the work gets done on time, you don't really care when they do it? That obviously is greater flexibility. You can then get away with a little less pay for people. So you have to figure out when you need this person to be online and how quickly you need them to be available and how often that you need them to be available. Establishing clear communication from the very beginning will make things so much easier. Make it clear that your door is always open for questions, comments, concerns, to improve the business. If you communicate like this and have an open door, it will make your hire much more comfortable, and ultimately will be more likely to result in long-term success. Step number 5, managing a virtual assistant. A lot of people will hire and then they'll say like, well, what is this person doing all day? And they don't know. And one of the big things is having all your data and all your information to spread out over all these different project management boards. You've got some Trello over here, you've got some Notion over here, you got Slack, you got Drive, you got all these different places where all this different stuff is. Have this sorted before your virtual assistant comes on board. This is how you effectively manage a virtual assistant, is being organized yourself to begin with. Unless you are hiring an executive assistant or an operations manager, someone to organize all of this, expecting a virtual assistant to know where everything is and to make sense of whatever systems that you have in your head that you've built out over the years, it's not realistic. You need to be organized. You shouldn't be asking the person you hire, what software do you think I should use on their first day? Over time, if you think that there might be a better way and you think that they may know a better way, you could certainly go to them and say, hey, so-and-so, like, is there a way that we could improve upon this system? Like, would you recommend we maybe switch the software, whatever it might be? But asking someone to make sense of whatever you have in your head on the very first day and streamline it and improve upon it, that's not realistic. And let's be honest, as business owners, a lot of times, and I'm speaking to myself here as much as anyone, you're not the most organized person. You skip from thing to thing. You are always changing roles and you just throw stuff here, you throw stuff there, and you may not even know where it all is. So expecting someone else to know all that, not a good way to go about it. So basically, have your stack of software, wherever you keep your files, however you manage your projects, have that ready to go. It should not be a virtual assistant creating it for the first time. Again, if you've hired an executive assistant, maybe a different story. A virtual assistant, more low level, that's not their job. Number 6 is to set clear deadlines and expectations. So I always like to say, don't ever tell an employee, oh, just get it done when you can, unless you don't want it done, unless it's not urgent at all and it really truly doesn't matter. Most of the time though, you've got an idea in your head of when it should be done. And even if it's not critical, you know how long it would take you know how long it would take to turn this around, whatever it might be. So it's likely that you have expectation of what this person's going to do and when they're going to turn it around by. So when they don't meet that, what's going to happen? You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be mad. You're going to point the finger at them. You're going to blame them, even though it was you who did not set the proper expectations. So from day one, always communicate when you expect things to be done and make it clear that if they do not think that they can deliver by that day or that time, whatever it might be, that they need to tell you. They don't get to just run and hide when there's a deadline that's coming up and they can't meet it. They need to communicate. If they're going to be late, they need to communicate as early as possible so that you can adjust. And this is especially true if you're hiring creative talent. So if you're hiring like a video editor, graphic designer, web designer, anything that, creates stuff where it's a project by project basis, you need to be really, really clear on the deadlines. And this is again, where I was saying earlier, if you have a general virtual assistant, try to fill at least part of their day with the same tasks where they know like every day, hey, I'm going to be doing this. So for example, my administrator, Arena, she every day goes through my social media and she picks some of my best content and puts it into a retweet queue basically. So it posts the same stuff again. From there, she takes some of the little shorts that I shoot and she adds subtitles to them. She has a few things every day that she logs in, and the expectation is that she does them every single day. That's it. And that fills at least a few hours of her day. And then of course, myself and my executive assistant, Victoria, we give her other tasks throughout the day, or, every week we say, hey, this week, can you take care of this? Can you take care of that? But she has a set amount of things that she's responsible for that she wakes up and she does every day. And that way I know that that time is not being wasted. Step 7, and this is a controversial one. Should you use time tracking software? So this is obvious, right? This is a whole video about how to manage a virtual assistant. And the one thing that everyone's afraid of is kind of getting taken for a ride. So should you use time tracking software? I have to say, I am personally not a fan. Here's why. You're hiring someone to do this role. You are trusting a part of your business, which is your baby, it's your livelihood, to somebody else. And that takes guts. And it's hard to do. It's hard to start taking your hands off the reins and entrusting someone else to do the job. But you've made that decision. You've decided to do that, right? So why are you then going to cut that person's knees off? Because that's exactly what you're doing. Because you're saying, I'm trusting you, I'm trusting you, I'm trusting you. I've hired you and I trust you, but I don't really trust you. You see where I'm going with that? It's very much cutting them off at the knees. And to me, it always has made a lot more sense. Like if you are at the point where you need time tracking software, maybe you hired the wrong person. And as a business owner, especially a small business owner, You need the superstars. You need the A+ players. You don't want the people skating by with C's and D's. I mean, I'll be honest, I was the C's get degrees kind of guy in college. I skated my way through. I hardly ever studied, and I managed to make it through, but that's not who you want in your business. And to me, it's so different, right? It's different to be reading a book and going and sitting through this lecture about all these different courses and this material that you don't really care about. That's very different than a job where you're getting paid, and that you are paid to a certain extent on performance. You have the ability to move up. So keep that in mind. You don't want the people that skated by with C's. You want the people who are gunning for the A's in their career. So should you use time tracking software? Try not to. That's not how anyone wants to be treated, right? I'm sure many of you have worked a corporate job at some point. That's probably not how you wanted to be treated. So keep that in mind. If it's getting to the point where you think someone's got another job or they're really not getting anything done and you're not quite ready to fire them, you want to give them one more chance, you go to them and you say, hey, I need you to do this so that I know that this relationship is working how it's supposed to be. Number 8, to be super clear with your instructions and your feedback. Don't expect them to just figure it out. You should have a library of training materials ready. Go to the channel and type in the 3-tiered training system, which will show you exactly how to do what we do at HireUA, which is basically have the materials, then let them shadow you, you shadow them, and then you shut up and shadow them basically. If you have the right materials in place where people are able to read and learn a lot, watch a lot before they even have to start doing things live, it'll make things a lot easier. You should also make an effort to provide clear instruction and feedback. So if someone's not doing the job you want them to do, tell them. Especially for the first few weeks and first few months, you should make an effort to check in probably at least on a weekly basis with a one-on-one meeting on Zoom or Google Meet where you say, hey, what are you struggling with? What can I help? What materials are missing? What do I need to do to help you succeed in this role? Because that's what you want, right? You want this person to actually succeed because you hired them to take something off your plate. So if they do fail, you've wasted all this time, and you've probably wasted all these opportunities in the meantime too. So it's in your best interest to get them to a point they're actually succeeding at the job. So again, clear expectations, clear feedback, and always have an open door to your employees. Step number 9 is to actually care. And what I mean by this is simply ask them how they are doing. When you do those one-on-one meetings with them, ask them to tell you something interesting about themselves. I always say this on interviews. I say, tell me something interesting about you, not something you've ever said on a job interview before, nothing typical about your last jobs, nothing boring. Tell me something interesting about you. If, for example, you know that one of your employees is going to the gym consistently, ask them about their workout routine. You know, say they go for a bike ride one week, ask them the next week, like, oh, hey, did you go for another ride? How'd it go? Like, was the weather nice? Actually show an interest in them, their lives, more so than just what they're doing for you. Treat them as a person, not just a robot who's doing work. Don't be like a fast food company that churns its employees out over and over and over again and is now just replacing them with kiosks and robots. Treat them like a human. You will get much further. And keep in mind too, if you are from a Western country, other cultures are different. So if you're hiring from Ukraine or you're hiring from the Philippines or India, obviously I'm biased, you should hire from Ukraine. Learn about the culture, learn about the customs. You know, if you know that there's a national holiday coming up, ask them how it was, what their plans were, what they do on these days. Learn a few of the local words in the local dialect. Things have changed obviously since the war started in Ukraine, but I speak decent Russian, and I could speak to my employees in one of their own languages prior. My Ukrainian's not really at a point I can talk in business sense yet, but it'll get there. And I think that just having a little bit of that language where you show that you have an interest in them and their culture and their language and their heritage, that really goes a long way versus being another, I hate to say it, but a typical American, because we do get that stereotype sometimes, and it's not undeserved. Step number 10, hire fast, fire faster, and promote fastest. So Gary Vee says this all the time. If you have a good feeling about someone, pull the trigger, hire them. If you've got that feeling that they can't do the job once they've started, get rid of them. More often than not, it's not going to get better. That is just how it is. It's like a relationship, right? Where you should break up and you just don't. You stay in the crappy relationship for a long time and nobody's ever happy. And you just end up wasting everybody's time. Fire faster and promote fastest. If you've got someone who's got it, they've got the sauce, my God, give them the reins, give them more responsibility, give them an opportunity to make hires themselves, whatever it's going to be, give them the next step in their career and in their life. Why wouldn't you? If they're crushing it for you, let them crush it in other ways. There's no reason to hold them back. All right. In summary, the 10 ways that you can effectively manage a virtual assistant. Number 1 is to clearly define the help that you need and the tasks that you are looking to get off your plate. Number 2 is to actually define that scope of work, write out a good job description, actually really put down and make sure it's all aligned with your company values. Number 3, hire the right person. Number 4, establish clear communication, the method you're going to be using, how often they are expected to check in with you, and how quickly they are supposed to respond. Number 5 is actually have your software stack ready to roll, which means you aren't asking your new employee on their first day to reorganize your entire library and system of files and everything, right? Let them come in and do the job, not clean up your mess. Number 6, always set expectations and deadlines, make it clear, make it unconditional. And again, if you don't set a deadline, it is your fault, not theirs. Number 7, don't use time tracking software. That would be my recommendation. Step number 8, always provide clear feedback and clear instructions moving forward. Number 9, actually get to know this person. Ask them personal questions, remember things, and of course, check in with them occasionally. And number 10, finally, hire fast, fire faster, promote fastest. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to effectively manage a virtual assistant. If you are at the point in your business where you are looking to take some tasks off your plate, we would love to help you out. Go to hire-ua.com. Check the links in the description below. Otherwise, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Lots more content about outsourcing, operations, systems, and scaling coming at you soon. And thanks for tuning in. Take care.